Release the Kraken!
The NHL Seattle franchise has finally revealed its name, and now it's speculation time. Who will go where and who will be picked? Who gets protected and who gets unprotected? Any expansion in any professional sport is exciting. Everyone loves new things. And with the Seattle Kraken, whether it's the name, logo, or unique color scheme, they make many jaws drop. Now that the important details have been revealed, we now can make our predictions for who the Kraken select in the expansion draft. And that's what we'll be doing. But to save time and to keep things organized, instead of revealing each pick one by one, team by team, we'll be splitting this video into 3 different sections: the forwards, the defensemen, and the goaltenders. Also to point out, we took trades and deals into consideration, as some teams may make offers to ensure they keep the unprotected players they still want on their roster. And finally, we sorta took the salary cap into mind, but nothing can be perfect and the cap may or may not expand by the time the Kraken arrive. But we tried our best to make things work out. With that all out of the way, let's get started. We'll go line by line and start off with our first line. The Kraken's first player goes by the name of James Van Riemsdyk, and honestly, he would be a great first line winger for Seattle. In my opinion, it boils down to 3 players from Philly: Gostisbehere, Hayes, and JVR. And I feel even though the ghost rumors are out there, the Kraken take JVR and Philadelphia protects Hayes, as Hayes has a bit more value. JVR has struggled a bit production wise since arriving in Philly, but he also struggled to stay healthy. If he can last a full season and get back to his 50-60 point range in Seattle, he would be huge. Next to him, Brian Little, and he's been a very consistent top 6 forward for the majority of his career. I feel Winnipeg would protect guys like Lowry or Kopp over Little strictly due to the age gap, but this pick would give Brian Little a bit more ice time, and his leadership would massively help Seattle in year 1. Little, however, is coming off of a massive injury that only allowed him to play 7 games, but despite that, he still produced 5 points. Little's playmaking abilities will be a big plus, especially if he's still racking up 20 to 30 assists a year at age 32. Finally, to top off the first line, we have TJ Oshie, and I feel as though Oshie is a must-have in Seattle. First off, the obvious: he's a hometown boy. Having Oshie head back home would create an already great connection with a few fans. But Oshie is a dominant player who has a knack for goal scoring. Pair him up with a creative playmaker in Brian Little and JVR, and you have a dynamic first line that would get the job done. But this is just the first line. As we head to our second, it may get better. On the second line left wing slot, we have Alex Kellorn. Now, many think, like Oshie, the Kraken should select Tyler Johnson to bring him home as well. However, I feel Kellorn would provide a slightly more valuable role than Johnson would. Kellorn has always been a solid player, and an underrated one at that. He's always there when you need him, and his positioning is a key factor to his game. Kellorn is also a cheaper option than Johnson, and is a slightly better producer as well. He'll be lined up with Blue Jacket center Alex Wennberg, and this will be huge for Wennberg's game. I've always felt that we could see a bit more out of Wennberg than we've previously seen, and I've always thought he could take that next step, and this would be a perfect chance for Wennberg to adapt to a new scenery and play a better role on the team. Pairing him up alongside Kellorn would see his numbers go up as well, and I feel Wennberg is a perfect fit overall. Finally, we have Jordan Eberly, who seems to be the odd man out in Long Island. Now, my original pick was going to be Josh Ho-Sang, but I feel if the Isles want to keep their core guys intact as well as the younger guys on the lineup, I don't see how Eberly will be protected, so Seattle should have no problem scooping him up. Eberly is one of my personal favorites, as he can rack up points almost every night, and having him with Wennberg and Kellorn should help that second line explode. Now that we've got our top 6 out of the way, we can now head to our bottom 6, or our secondary scoring. And this third line may just be my favorite overall. On the left, we have Sam Bennett, who has always been a versatile forward you can plug anywhere in the lineup. Bennett also leads us to our first trade of the expansion draft as well. Calgary is in a weird spot right now. They can't afford to lose out on guys such as Mangiapane, Shillington, and Dylan Dubé, so in order to protect those guys from not being picked, Calgary will send a 2021 second round pick Seattle's way in exchange for the Kraken selecting Sam Bennett. Bennett would, in my opinion, be a very underrated piece to this Kraken team, as he's able to provide solid stability and, like mentioned earlier, can pretty much fit anywhere you need him. Centering him is Alex Kerfoot, and honestly, he could be a very underrated piece to this lineup if he gets played correctly. I feel the players he'd line up with may help him take his next step in becoming a consistent scorer. It'll most likely come down to captain or Kerfoot draft wise, but I think Kerfoot would rather stay in Seattle when his deal expires as opposed to captain, and Kerfoot is a chance the Kraken should really take. Riemsdyk. Finally, on his right is Conor Sherry, and this may be my favorite player on this line, as Sherry is sneaky good and he seems to be at the right place at the right time. He opened up the exhibition series with a wicked shot on Carter Hart that made some heads turn. Sherry is a guy who can always get you a few points here and there, and those are the guys you want when the going gets rough. This third line may just be one of the most underrated on this team. Finally, the fourth line, which I'll cover briefly. On the left wing, we have Red Wings forward Brendan Pellini. Now, the Red Wings don't really have much to offer as they aren't very good at the moment, but Pellini should be a standout on their unprotected list. He's young and may still have some upside, so maybe the Kraken can give Pellini a spark. Centering him is Radek Faksa, and Faksa's always been one of my personal favorite stars, as he's so underrated and overlooked. He'll be a key face-off guy and will be great for the Kraken's secondary scoring. And finally, to top the offense off, we have Caggiula. Caggiula is another player you can move up and down the lineup, who can score some goals here and there, and is overall just a consistent role player. He'd be great in Seattle. We have a lot of extras here as well, names that feature the following: Matt Luff, Lucas Wallmark, Sean Corrali, Rocco Grimaldi, Josh Levo, Ivan Barbashev, and Casey Middlestad. Middlestad is a name I want to bring up, as honestly, we don't know what the future holds for him. He's been sent down to the AHL multiple times already and has yet to play a solid role on the Buffalo Sabres. I feel that if you're Seattle, you have to take a chance on this guy. Moving Middlestad to the Kraken could be huge for both sides. Now with the offense out of the way, let's take a look at who will be on the blue line. Our first defensive pairing is the best out of the bunch. We'll start on our left with Wild defenseman Jonas Brodin. But here's the problem. We don't know what the future holds for Matt Dumba and the Minnesota Wild. For all we know, the Wild might actually leave Dumba unprotected. But for the sake of this video, we say they make the smart move and protect him, leaving Brodin once again wide open. And I think this time, the Wild will let him go. Brodin will be a great pick for the Kraken. He's always been perhaps one of the most underrated D-men on the Wild's roster, and he would, in my opinion, play a role similar to Nate Schmitz on Vegas. Brodin's playmaking abilities would help out a lot as well, especially for his line mate, as we have the Kraken selecting from the New Jersey Devils PK Suban. We've seen Suban start to head on the decline, especially this season, as PK would produce some of the worst numbers of his career. Suban's main problem may not be his decline production wise, however, as that $9 million salary cap would hurt any team. So the Devils make our second trade here, sending off a 2021 second and a 2022 third to the Kraken so they can select PK Suban. And honestly, Suban wouldn't be a bad pick, as like mentioned, pairing him up with Jonas Brodin may help Suban's numbers get back to what they used to be. The main focus Seattle will have though is making sure they utilize Suban properly, as we've seen teams reap the benefits from PK. Moving on to our second pairing, we have Ben Chiarot. And I was so close to having the Kraken take Kulak over him, but after looking at Montreal's options, I think they ultimately protect Kulak, but Chiarot may be just as fair. Chiarot really broke out this season, playing a bigger role in Montreal, as he would actually post a career high in both goals and points in just 69 games. If given another shot at a top 4 role, we could see Chiarot continue to excel offensively as well as work on his overall defensive game. Next to him is Adam Larson, and this would be an interesting choice as it comes with our third and final trade. Yes, Larson is in a trade again, but it's not as bad as you may think. The Oilers will send a struggling Jesse Puljujarvi to Seattle so they can select Adam Larson. With guys like Ethan Bear potentially being left unprotected and Larson having a decline this season and coming back from an injury, the Oilers would most likely have to make an offer to keep Bear on the roster and to ship Larson out. Pairing Larson with Chiarot could potentially help both defensemen improve on one or more aspects of their game. The bottom pairing we'll go over relatively quickly. We have Ryan Graves from Colorado and Matt Lajoie from Ottawa, the extras being Hayden Fleury and Kristen Jews. With the defense out of the way, it's now time to see who will be guarding the crease. Antti Raanta has always been pretty consistent when healthy. He seems to be one of the most intriguing names on the potential unprotected market. If the Kraken see him available, they'd have to budge. Raanta will be a great starter in Seattle, but it boils down to his health like mentioned. Despite injuries this year, he still managed to produce a .921 save percentage and form a dynamic duo with fellow teammate Darcy Kemper. If he goes to Seattle, the Scorpion King can soon become King of the Sea. Backing him up will be Aaron Dell. As much as I think it could end up being Martin Jones, Aaron Dell will be the pick due to the salary cap reasoning. Even if it is Dell that ends up being unprotected, I still think the Kraken take the bait. Dell has always been somewhat of an underrated goaltender and had a big role, especially this season, as Martin Jones struggled in San Jose. A 1-2 punch of Raanta and Dell would be huge. We also have Alexander Georgiev coming in as a strong third string option, so the Kraken would have a decent goaltending situation right off the bat. Once the time comes for Seattle to make their selections, their roster will most likely look completely different than the one we assembled today. But it's all for fun and is based off pure speculation. We all saw how well Vegas took advantage of the expansion draft to form a competitive team, and we can see the same thing occur with the Kraken, as all it takes is one offer, pick, or a player left unprotected to turn the league's newest team into the next biggest force.